Growing up and accepting responsibility is a trope that seems a bit overused in all forms of media, but it somehow always sticks around without much change, and perhaps that is because of how relatable it is to everyone out there. While we may not have to don on a suit or use superpowers responsibly, there will come a day where we each must tackle some sort of adversity in our lives. Unfortunately, it isn't something we get to choose the timing on, and the rising to the occasion and overcoming the odds comes in a variety of forms. Video games allow the player to live out extreme circumstances, and an upcoming game is looking to use this style of storytelling. But what is this game, and should you be checking it out when it releases? Stay tuned to find out. Developed by Twirlbound, who previously created the game Pine, and published by Saber Interactive, who developed the game Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, the Knightling is an open-world action-adventure game where you play as an aspiring knight in search of their missing mentor, Sir Lionstone. Utilizing a legendary shield, you must step up to the plate in your mentor's absence and brave your way through the lands of Klesia, looking to help its citizens and become an unlikely hero. As you begin the demo, it seems a little apparent that some sort of introduction is missing, although it isn't really super hard to put all the pieces of the world together. There are knights that assist the citizens with tasks that are too dangerous for them to tackle, like disposing of hostile wildlife. However, since the knight that you serve is currently MIA, you decide it's best if someone does something. Tasked with it understanding why an animal won't go into its enclosure, you discover a swath of enemies holding up inside, and you use your trusty shield to bash the ones on the ground and hurl it at the ones that are hiding in the walls. You then begin to unravel why they were there in the first place, and after solving this mystery, you hear a signal that lets you know that someone's arrived at the town gate. So off you dash to meet your mentor, although upon arriving, all that there is Sir Lionstone's horse. Unable to leave the town due to good old-fashioned political overreach, you must uncover what you can and help those around you until you can finally reunite with the beloved knight. So with that little synopsis out of the way, let's dig into what I liked and what I didn't like during my time with the demo. While a little cumbersome at first, the combat shows potential and sort of reminded me a bit of the God of War series and how unlocking new attacks creates the potential for larger combos to unleash on your enemies. After pushing through a learning curve, it became pretty fun to tackle a large group of enemies at once that also sort of alluded to Breath of the Wild, which seems to have heavily inspired a great deal of the Knightling, even down to the fast method of travel that is basically shield sledding. Although the button for sprint and sledding are the same, so many times when I would anticipate hitting the ground to start running, I would end up sitting on my shield, which kind of honestly started to annoy me slightly as it kept happening. The quests you go through are relatively basic, however that didn't keep them from being interesting, whether that be the investigative, puzzle, or combat aspects to them. That being said, one glaring issue with some of the quests is a lack of direction. There were more than a few times where I felt frustration over what seemed like misdirection. One quest had me investigate sites to discover what caused the issues and gave me a general area to explore, but I wasn't quite sure what could and couldn't be interacted with until I did it for myself. Another area had a waypoint, and I was convinced the game was broken because nothing would happen when I got there until I finally discovered how to properly start the quest, and it just felt like the quests themselves were made well, but with the lack of clarification and direction, it just kinda rubbed me the wrong way. In fact, one of the issues I have with one of the first quests you take is how a new enemy is handled. Given that all you faced up until this point are these black blobs on the ground that take a few hits to kill, and those on the walls that basically die instantly, you are introduced to a new enemy in the form of this wolf-like predator that you must take out. Instead of facing one to allow the player to potentially learn how much health it has or what sort of attack patterns to expect from it, the developers thought the right approach would be to literally have you face an infinite number of them. The goal in the fight is to prevent more from spawning by destroying this object, all while fending off multiples of these that can and will start to overwhelm you in your first encounter with them. I ended up being able to take care of them and take out the nest, but I knew there had to be a better way to introduce the player to this enemy type, although it might not have mattered because after this, I literally never saw them again. The game mostly opens up to allow the player to travel to the gate, and during this time I got sidetracked a few times, which was kind of nice because it showed that not only could I discover multiple side quests, but it also allowed me to collect multiple forms of currency that can later be used to upgrade and unlock new abilities. Traversal was actually really solid because even if you fell from a high place, there was always a quick way back up. Although as you traveled, there was one thing that became a bit noticeable, and that is the weird lines of dialogue coming from your shield.
The fields look particularly bright today. It hurts my eye.
As far as I recall, it was the only voice lines in the games, which were performed alright, but the lines themselves almost felt random, and I even heard several of them repeated that make me question, is this weapon just rude?
Time to witness the ineptitude of the Cliffian farmers once more.
I'd say that in the end, my time with the Knightling got better as I played, and I can see a lot of the ambition that went into the project, but I just felt like there needed to be a better introduction to the game. Open worlds do great when they guide the player for a bit and then let them go free. Breath of the Wild hit its tutorial well enough that some may not even realize that the starting plateau is exactly that. It teaches you everything you should know and then literally lets you glide out to discover the rest of the game as you see fit. Now, I don't believe that the Knightling is looking to tackle that sort of aspiration, but with a great deal of inspiration taken from that, I just felt like it was missing something that I hope will be at the beginning of the full game. With the release in a couple of months, I will likely be picking up the full game to see if the start was any better, but again, I will say that the game really began to grow on me as I kept playing, and because of that, I think it's worth checking out if you're curious. With that, that'll be it for this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, be kind to one another. Shoutouts go to Relativity, Naughty Dog is King, Chaos, and Kamikolo alongside all those subbed to the channel. I hope you enjoyed this semi-new format as I continue to experiment with making longer videos. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you soon.